Hey guys, just wanted to say I do realize that the Super Saiyan 3 Goku that I'm drawing in this video doesn't look necessarily like the one from Dragon Ball Z, but that wasn't the point of the exercise. I have done copies, which you can see from the first two images, but let's get started. I'm extremely excited that you decided to join me for the second video. I'm hoping this one's going to be a little bit more helpful for people. These are 5 ways that I improved my own art, and as a person that was, well, I would say I'm still pretty much a beginner. I really wanted to share these 5 things with you. And some of them I'm sure you've probably heard before from teachers, other YouTubers, whatever, but I still wanted to tell you, the improvements and stuff that I've made, and how I made them. So the first one, and this is something that I really had to get used to, is just relax and draw. Honestly, especially when you're first getting started, there's no reason to sit there and stress about whether or not it's going to be perfect and all that good stuff, because it's not. No art's perfect. I mean, I said this in the last video. Nobody's art is perfect. I don't care if you're the best artist in the world. It's still not perfect. Also, with that being said, when you relax and draw, you end up doing better work, because if you're all stiff and you're sitting there so worried about everything, and I've had this happen. It ended up actually happening in the video that you'll see now. Is I sat there and I got to a point where I was starting to stress out, like, oh, what are they gonna think when they see this video, yada yada yada, and I ended up it took me a solid 30 minutes just to do a couple of things, which I actually ended up cutting out of this, just because it ended up being boring. I drew the hands 15 times, but don't be afraid to practice, or not practice. That's another point. Sorry. Just relax and draw, and just get it done. And if it's bad, it's bad. If it's good, it's good. Don't worry about that. So this brings me to my next point. My next point is just let yourself be uncomfortable. And what do I mean by that? I mean that, when you start getting good at something, a lot of the times you want to just keep doing that thing over and over and over again. Or if you have a certain way of drawing a face, you do the face the same way over and over and over again. And you don't learn anything, right? You worked really hard to get to that point, but you've gotten to that point and you're no longer learning. And that's really what art's about. If you want to improve your art, you have to learn. So make sure you you work as hard as you can, and then challenge yourself, because at the end of the day, if you're not challenging yourself, you're not learning. And then also, another point with that is you're going to be uncomfortable sometimes sharing your artwork, right? This is something that I really struggled with, starting this YouTube channel. I wish my girlfriend could get on here and talk to you about this a little bit, but I had anxiety just doing this this video that you're seeing now. I was the Goku didn't come out as great as I wanted him to, but I think he's good, but he might not be good enough to show. And she was like, just show it. That's the point of your videos, and that is the point of my videos, right? At the end of this, I'll kind of say some of the things that I think I could have done better, and some things that I can improve on. And that's part of it, right? And if you don't share it, you also don't get feedback. And that's something else that you desperately need. There are some cruel people out there that are gonna, kind of trash your work and stuff like that. And don't worry about that. Those people ignore. The ones that give you actual feedback, this is good, but maybe you can try shading it this way. Or, oh, that's good, but maybe try doing this. Those are the people you want to listen to, because they're taking the time to actually try to help you with your work. And those types of things are, going back to being uncomfortable in the first part, those types of things are going to help you learn new stuff. And if you're willing to accept that criticism, then it's going to help you in the long run. So the next one is going to be, don't be afraid to fail. So this kind of goes hand in hand with what I was just talking about. When you're drawing, don't worry so much about whether or not you're going to make this perfect piece of art. Fail, because if you don't fail, you're not going to learn from your mistakes. And also, I know people kind of debate this. I think you should try as best as you can to keep the artwork that you think is quote unquote bad, because the stuff that you feel is bad, those are the biggest learning opportunities for you, right? Like for me, I learned so much by going back and, like, for instance, this Goku that you kind of see on the screen here and there. I looked at him, and at the time I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But looking back on it now, I look at it and I'm like, wow, I didn't really know what I was doing with the clothing. Like, I just literally made lines on his shirt, and it looks kind of goofy. But I didn't toss it because I was proud of it, one, but two, I didn't toss it because I knew it was a good learning experience, right? And I understand if you get frustrated and you just can't anymore and you need to rip the paper and crumple it and throw it away just for therapeutic means, please do that. I'm not saying don't do that, but try as much as you can to keep the bad artwork, quote unquote bad artwork, because that's something that you have, that's yours, and it helps you move past something, right? It helps you improve your better artwork. My fourth point, and I know that artists across the world say this one, use references from life. When I get stuck on something, I try not to look too much to other anime or manga type artwork. I try to look at stuff that's as real as I can get, which is, sometimes if I can't get actual pictures, I'll use like the figurines that I have. I actually used it a little bit for this video, doing the Super Saiyan 3 Goku that I'm doing up there. But using references from life, even if you are a manga artist or an anime style artist or even a comic book artist, you're like, oh, I'm making cartoons or whatever. It doesn't have to be that great. That's not true, because even cartoons have some sense of proportion to them, right? It's somewhat calculated in there, and that's what makes things look real, right? And makes it, even if it's not like supposed to look real, it still makes it look like you know what you're doing, because artists can look at your stuff, or people can look at your stuff too and say, why is his eyeball in that spot and not this spot? Or why are his hands, which is a problem I actually have with this video, why are his hands so tiny in comparison to the rest of his body? Or why are his legs, etc., etc. So try to use reference from life, especially when you're stuck on something, because it's a really good learning experience. It really turned around my drawings, and if you look at the Super Saiyan 3 Goku and the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta in the earlier part of this video, those aren't from life, but I did use a reference for them, and I did not trace, I did not do any of that. I literally sat there and I just looked back and forth and drew it that way, and it came out much better than the Super Saiyan 3 Goku that's in this video that I did the first time. And they're only 3 months apart, believe it or not. So that's another tip for you. Number 5, be a student. So this is slightly different than the other ones. Not only do I try to learn by looking at other people's artwork and stuff like that and doing techniques, I also have been writing down notes, which I think has been really useful for me. I think, when was it? I probably started this just a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. So I'll write down notes for like composition and things like that, and it's actually made my artwork much better, and it gives me a guide as to where I can look on stuff. And it also can be useful for, like, if you forget like the rule of like 50-50-50 for the face, where you split the head in half and the eyes usually go around that area, and you split the bottom half in half again, and that's usually where the nose ends. And then if you split it up again in half, that's usually where the mouth lies. If you have trouble remembering that for some reason, then you can use that. Or, tall manga characters are usually around, 7 heads or a little more if you want to make them look super tall. And then, shorter manga characters are 5 or 6 heads, something of that nature. Then you can kind of write that stuff down. And then the other part of being a student is, I kind of touched on this a little bit ago. When you're copying work, don't do what I did. Don't just copy it to try to make something look good. Copy it and learn from it, right? I guess what I did learn in the other two is that I actually, if I sat down and learned shading. I actually feel like I'd be pretty decent at shading, but I haven't really taken the time to sit down and learn how to shade properly, which is something I plan on doing in the near future. But even other types of work, right? If you want to do like, I don't know, like Renaissance art or something like that, even though you're not interested in it, it will teach you something because you're learning techniques that people use that are very effective. Or you can go on YouTube and watch, you know, all the YouTubers draw, and don't just watch them draw, like watch and follow along. Be a student, write down notes. For instance, one of the things I feel like I improved on a lot in this video, as you're seeing, is even though it's not perfect, I still have a lot of work to do, is how I draw fabric and how I draw fabric folds. I still have a lot of stuff I need to work on with that, but I was able to kind of look at Jazza, his tutorial on that, and kind of write down notes as to like what it looks like when thick fabric is stretched, or what it looks like when thin fabric is stretched. What if it's kind of loosely just draped over? What does that look like? How can I draw it as simple as I can and not to like really like I guess complicate things? How can I draw it simple to make it look decent? And then you can move on to, oh, let's do more complicated stuff, and that'll help you. You know, if you write down notes, or if you're just a visual learner, do your scrapbook and do like a section of, you know, these are the fabrics, fabric folds, and this is yada yada yada, all that good stuff. So that's one way you can do it as well. So extra point, and this one is very basic. Practice. Don't take like 3 weeks off from drawing because you're frustrated with something. Don't do that, because you're going to start drawing again and you're going to be so disappointed as to how much you've regressed. That also doesn't mean, though, don't practice until you kill yourself. I had this experience probably about a month ago, or maybe it was probably a little longer than that, probably like 3 or 4 months ago actually, where I was like, babe, like, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to draw and I'm going to work on my manga and this and that. And I did that for like a week. After that, like, or it's probably longer, it's probably 2 weeks. After I did that 2 weeks, I freaking wanted to like never draw again. And that was obviously counterproductive. So quick point. But, you know, if you need to take a day or two off, obviously I do the same thing because I'm working constantly. Take a day or two. That's okay. But make sure you come back to it and try to think about artwork while you're taking your break. Like, oh, like this person's face is kind of interesting. Take a quick scan. Don't stare at them. Don't be a creep. And then come back and be like, oh, I could draw it this way or that way or whatever. So one of my last points I wanted to make about practice is, if you are a full-time employee somewhere and you don't really have that much time to draw, maybe bring a sketchbook with you. Even small little doodles will help, you know, if you can at least. I have a lot of free time, so that's something that really helped me while I was, you know, starting to draw and starting to get really serious with drawing. So, you know, that's something you can at least try to think about. And the last part of this video, I just kind of want to tell you, I ended up being very happy with the way this Goku was. He does seem a little slouched, which is something I need to improve on with his gestures and stuff like that with my gesture drawing. But as you can see, the finished product, I thought it was pretty cool looking, but you be the judge. Anyways, I do want to take this time to thank you so much. The support the first week has just been incredible, and I really do appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, though, please give me a thumbs up down below. And if you really enjoyed it and you want to see more of my content, please subscribe. And, you know, that's about it. I'm Manga Mike, and I'm out.